Do you want to do that again tonight? So I will start. See if this works. Not gonna work.
Nope.
Okay, hang on.
Maybe I have to be on that page.
You are changing the recording
Oh.
thing now.
Oh, I see that. Okay. maybe not. We really did.
See,
practice.
it's doing it now again.
Okay, hold on.
It's working.
Are you ready?
No, it's not.
Let's just not look at it. And we'll come on.
Yeah, it'll do it behind her back.
So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm Jill Wechsler. Like she said, I'm a care coordinator with Link Scales Elder Law Practice in Hayes. I'm also a member of a different mindset committee here in Hayes. Our goal for our committee is to bring support to caregivers in this area. And you'll see in the back there, we have the polka coming up, which is a fundraiser, our first fundraiser for our association. And we've got some caregiver support groups. The Zoom caregiver support group has been going on since March of 2020. And then we are starting our very first in-person support group this month, the 25th, I believe. We're gonna have that out at the Center for Health and Improvement at the hospital. It's in the education room, so right when you come in, you don't have to be a member, obviously, of the center. The neat thing about what we're doing out there in person, it's Thursday at 1 o'clock. And is if you have a loved one that you care for and you can't leave them alone or you don't have somebody to watch them for you, is to come to the support group. They can, if they meet the criteria, participate, and I think it's the Live Well program there that they will supervise exercises. And then one of our committee members is also going to be there to help supervise anybody if they brought their loved one that has dementia or Alzheimer's come into the support group. So today, I will go ahead and real quick, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here and what you hope to learn, just quickly. I'll start over here because this is our committee.
I'm Trish Bonlano. I'm committee member of the Different Mindset. Took care of my mother-in-law that lived right next to us on the farm, which had Alzheimer's and dementia. So wanted to help get some more support out there to everybody in this area. So we've been there and done that. So
I'm Jerry Schmipperger. My wife had it. She had it for 9 years, passed away about 8 years ago. Yes, she was very young. She got it at 52, died at 61. I've learned a few things through that process because I kept her at home the whole time. So I know some little tricks that I can share with all of you if they let me talk.
It has to be.
I'm Linda Stone, and my sister, I just found out that she has one or the other. So I'm just trying to be more informed.
My name is Arlen Wechsler, and I was diagnosed with memory loss and stuff, so I'm just giving more information and trying to get things in order.
I'm Claudia Stramel, and I'm just trying to help you more. My mother had Alzheimer's and my brother had Alzheimer's.
Jerry Rupp this morning.
Thank you.
I'm Mitchell Rupp. We're married. I'm here to learn more about Alzheimer's and just find out how many little symptoms I might have. Because my memory is getting worse.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyway, that's who I am.
Stacy Rupp, their daughter, and I'm just here as support.
Great.
Kim Campbell, and I'm here because of my dad, who got dementia.
I'm Pam Gashler. I'm Kim's sister. We have another sister, and our dad is 88 and he's at home, and we are determined to keep him home and happy. And he can't speak, and he has Alzheimer's and dementia. So, yeah.
I'm Ray Makings. I'm the director of the Hayes Senior Center. I seek to partner with a different mindset in trying to expand people's awareness about these conditions, dementia, and I need to educate myself more in that matter. My previous experiences have mainly been pub crawls for all time. I need to expand.
Don't remember those nights, but that's.
I'm Kathy Piper, and my parents have Alzheimer's, dementia. I had aunts and uncles that have have that, so I'm just trying to learn as much as I can too, because I'm one of the caregivers, so.
I'm Kim Chapel, just here for some information with Riley and
Mike Chapel, we're together. I mentioned last night, just dealing with my.
And my dad, I have a personal story too. My dad had Pick's disease, which is a dementia type disease, and I helped take care of him and also saw the toll that it took on my mom, so I have that personal experience.
Anyone online? Do you?
Yeah, Gerald, do you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
I'm Gerald Piper. So I have, parents that have dementia and Alzheimer's. So yeah, just trying to learn more about it. So
Well, thank you guys. So last night was kind of the basic 101 of Alzheimer's dementia. And tonight we're going to focus more on dealing holistically with dementia behaviors. So I'm not a nurse or anything like that. I am a care coordinator. And do, like I said, life care planning. I go out and I try to help our clients stay home as long as possible. We have a benefit side that works on Medicaid applications, and we have legal side who does trusts and tries to protect people's assets. But my role at the office, we do have two nurses that are care coordinators as well. So I pick their brains a lot when it comes to, let's say, medications and things like that, which we're not going to really talk about tonight. So we want to try to avoid using those at all possible, because every medication has some sort of side effect that is probably unwanted. So if you can find different techniques that work well for your loved one that you're taking care of, then that's what hopefully we'll talk about tonight. And it's very interactive, I hope. I'm going to talk really fast because, like I said, I added some slides and I want you guys to get home before 9. So, all right.
Kind of progresses at a different rate for different people.
100%. Yeah, there is just no, I have people who have had the dementia for diagnosis for 10, 15 years, and then you have them like, oh, I got it 2 years ago, and it's gone so fast. And it's just really predictable. So wish there was better news, but we'll keep going and talk about some things that, I think last night they did a really good job of talking about what can you do to kind of help yourself, not prevent, but slow down the process. And of course, it's the healthy stuff that you need to do: exercise, get to sweat, and be social, be in places like this where you're actually communicating with other people. Don't be sedentary and sitting around, and eat healthy and avoid all the really good food, the sugars and the wine and the alcohol, all the good stuff. So anyway, let's see. Oh, it did work. So this is for you if you or a loved one has been diagnosed with dementia, or you're concerned about getting dementia. We've kind of talked about that. You want to learn different ways to support and communicate effectively with someone with dementia. You want to keep your loved one at home. So we're hitting you guys are all in the right place. Or you are a caregiver who is getting overwhelmed, which is very common. Nope. So we'll get back there. We'll get there. Yeah. So the objectives for tonight, I'll just keep moving along, is to identify behaviors related to dementia, to determine what the trigger is or the need is behind the behavior, to utilize helpful techniques to properly respond to the behaviors, to recognize signs of caregiver burnout, which is really important, to breastfeed. No, I'm kidding. I just happened to see what y'all were looking at. Just kidding. And to identify what supportive and healthy resources are available to you to decrease the caregiver fatigue.
Are you on learning objectives, or are you?
I just did them. So yeah, that's what we just discussed. So the next one. And just a quick overview, we kind of hit on this almost exact same thing. Dementia is the umbrella term. So all of those things underneath there are dementia, forms of dementia. So when you say, oh, somebody has cancer, what's the next thing you ask? Oh, what kind? That's what dementia is. You have dementia. Oh, what kind? You have Alzheimer's type. I have Lewy bodies or vascular, Parkinson's related dementia. So those are all forms of dementia. So tonight when I'm talking, I'm not going to try to say Alzheimer's because it's a hard word to say. I'm going to say dementia, pretty much everything, because all of these types of dementia could have similar behaviors. So we're gonna see. Yes.
Is there a certain way that they diagnose which type of, or is it just based on conditions?
It is kind of based on how it starts and when your symptoms come into play. And I'm honestly not really good at explaining all that, but there is a way to tell. Like if you had brain trauma, then it's most likely or if you had like a stroke, then it's probably vascular. If you had brain trauma, frontal temporal. So yeah, there's different ways. There's no like diagnostic test.
And there's like, they also go off symptoms because some of them have very different symptoms, like I think it's the frontal temporal, like there's marked personality changes in them and.
Yeah.
And they'll do MRIs. And
So we went through all of this.
They'll see if there's some gray matter and they'll do, there is a way to decide. I don't know how they determine exactly all of them based on.
I took my wife to the Mayo Clinic for 3 times and they tested her all 3 times. And when up there, they go, you have a test at 8 o'clock, you have another one at 8:30, one at 9 o'clock, you just keep going. And they could pretty well tell me it was 99.9% Alzheimer's. But they said the only way to know definitely would be to go in and do a brain biopsy. And I said, okay, if we do that, do we know anything more than we know now? They said, well, you're definitely gonna know. But she could come out of that as a stroke victim. Well, right now she could walk, she could talk, she could eat. So I'm thinking, I'm okay with 99.9%.
Yeah. And a lot of times you're not gonna, I mean, your doctor will know if there's a different type of way of treating it, if they do, but most likely because the treatments are vary, there's not a lot of treatments out there for a lot of them, but it'd be best just to talk to the doctor to see if it's worth finding out, if there's a different way of finding out. So good question. So what are the challenges that you face when you have dementia? The one we all talk about is just, I can't remember things. So it's a very difficult time remembering a lot. Most of the time you'll see it in the short-term memory, where that gets very difficult to remember a little bit more than, oh, I don't remember where I put my keys or where did I park my car, because that usually ends up coming back to you, but it's more definite. Like I just told that story 5 minutes ago and I don't remember that I did that. So that difficulty in remembering things, you can't think clearly or process information. So when you're communicating, there's a sender and a receiver, and sometimes you have a really difficult time getting the words out, and sometimes with dementia you can hear the words and you just can't identify and not process what they're saying. So that is a very difficult challenge for people who have dementia. Struggle to provide self-care. So as the dementia progresses, you do forget. You forget how to feed yourself. You can forget how to walk. You can forget how to, process, like someone tells you to go to the fridge and get the milk and you just can't process what that means. So it can get pretty difficult. And that's when caregiving really gets hard, is when you're trying to relearn things, because they're regressing. And you think about when you're a child, you had no idea how to do things and you had to learn them all over again. And as they progress, they just forget some of those things. And again, not everybody is affected that way. It just really does depend on how the disease is progressing in the brain. So really important to remember that dementia is a brain disorder. It is changing and shaping who these people are. It's not them, it's just the disorder that they're dealing with. So we cannot change that person, but we can change how we're going to respond to them and their behaviors. So first thing anyone will ever tell you is if you have somebody who's been diagnosed with dementia and all of a sudden they start having increased behaviors and it's really sudden, they're hallucinating. The first thing anyone will ever tell you to do is go to your doctor. Because there are some acute reasons why people, number one, if dementia symptoms increase, or they have dementia symptoms at all. I mean, it's not like if my mom or somebody had a urinary tract infection, she was fine before, but you get that infection and then all of a sudden she's not fine, but the infection clears up and she's back to being fine, something like that. So it's really important to check with your doctor to rule out any kind of acute medical concern that can be treated, that can either minimize the behavior that you're concerned about or eliminate it. And that, of course, is somebody who doesn't have dementia, but even if you have dementia and you get a urinary tract infection, then sometimes they can get a little more out there. My grandma we knew she had Alzheimer's. She was living in the nursing home, and most of the time she was great. She knew us, everything, but every once in a while, my aunt would get a phone call and grandma would be screaming at her because she's waiting at the church with all these pies and nobody's there to pick her up, and we just left her. And so we were like, could you please take a UA on her and make sure that she's okay? And then most times she had a urinary tract infection, and it was really affecting her mind. So really important to rule out those kind of things. Hypothyroidism, depression, maybe that could cause some symptoms that mimic a dementia. Obviously, stroke could be a vascular dementia problem that could maybe get better with some time. Side effect from a medication. It's really important to make sure that the physician is checking all these things. And they can do that by doing lab work, different things like that, but your doctor will know what is needed at the time. Any questions? Okay, what can we do? Because that's why we're all here. How can we improve our response to an unwanted behavior? The 5 things that we came up with is, number one, you have to identify the behavior that you're really not happy with or that is really been difficult for you. The second thing you want to do is determine what is the unmet need. Third thing is communicate understanding. We're going to break all these down, by the way. So 4th thing is respond to by meeting their need. And then the 5th thing is to evaluate how it all went, because you don't want to keep making the same mistakes. It's just really important to kind of go through this process as when you're a caregiver. So let's break all that down a little bit.
If I can.
Yeah.
I took care of our grandson for a year,
Mhm.
and as a 1-year-old, and that all looks exactly the same. Would that be?
No coincidence at all. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I think if you've ever been around somebody with dementia, sometimes you do feel like you're the adult trying to take care of a child and explain it in childlike terms and simplified terms. And so, yeah, I think.
Is that more advanced or just any time they've been diagnosed?
No, because most of the time in the beginning, people can go for years and not show signs or have any kind of behaviors. It's just the forgetfulness or, wandering into a room and like, what am I doing in here? And never remembering why you're there. But never remembering why you went back, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's probably the things I'm going to talk about today are more towards the more advanced, so let's say moderate to advanced dementia. So, okay. Those are what you to look forward to, maybe, I don't know, at times. So can you guys tell me some of since you've all had people in your lives that have had dementia or you're currently worried about, what are some of the behaviors that you've had to, or that are concerning to you?
Aggression.
In addition to that, ours is those personal things like using the restroom, taking a shower, those things.
Because we're all girls.
Yeah, and you got a dad.
We're his daughters, so we're in his personal space.
Absolutely, that is a tough one. Thank you.
It's very tough.
Yeah. Others?
And the only way I can get him to take his medicine is if I say,
So this is your 1-year-old thing coming.
I'll give you this dessert if you take your medicine.
You know what?
See, right?
Rewards are in my list.
On my last Monday at work.
It works because he likes his dessert.
It
And it doesn't
will
matter
work.
what it is.
100% with me when I promise you. So if any of you are my character, it will work. I like it. So, for sure. Yeah. Anything else that you can think of that are behaviors that you've seen, maybe other people, or that you're worried about having to deal with? Hiding things. Yeah. Perfect.
I would say the prior knowledge to use how to use a smartphone. Now the phone's broken all the time.
Mhm. Oh,
It's
yeah.
not her fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I
the
don't,
same thing with the TV remote too.
and losing the remote and
It
hiding
doesn't
them.
work. Well, I covered these numbers up so you wouldn't touch them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time, I didn't mention this, but I did work at a nursing home for about 9 years in eastern Kansas as their social worker. So you'll hear several, and I was a CNA and activities and all that too. Several stories from that. But we got one of those huge remotes that you can get like on Amazon, and those don't really help at all either. The buttons are this big, but they find all of it. So, but you gotta try things. You really do. So I did have a list. So you got communication difficulties we talked about. Nobody mentioned it, but wandering, at some point, they may want to get outside, and they get outside and nobody knows it and they're gone, or you're at Walmart and you just can't find them and they can't find their way to you, and they can't find their way to the front of the store. Incontinence, or, not knowing when to go to the bathroom or where the bathroom is. Agitation. Talked about that. Repetitive speech and action. I think that one, for me, is the most difficult to work with. I get very frustrated, and like I'll do all the right things for about 5 minutes and then I'm done. So it's something I have to work on. Hygiene and bathing and dressing. Sundowning, that is one where as the day goes on and as the afternoon moves on, you can see an increase. Like, they're really bright in the morning. I don't get it. Mom knows me every time I go see her when it's 10 o'clock. And I go see her at 3 o'clock. She has no idea who I am. And she's all over the place and I can't, figure out what's happening. So that would be considered sundowning. As the day goes on, they didn't get the nap. They're getting worn out. There's more stimulation throughout the day. So that's a term that is very commonly used. Sleeplessness. We kind of talked about this yesterday, I think. I'm getting my days mixed up, but where with dementia, the brain is affected, the sleep patterns are affected. And so they may sleep for a couple hours and then they're up and they feel great for a couple hours. And then they sleep another couple hours and then they're up for 6 hours and then they sleep again. They don't necessarily, their body is not able to just lay down for 8 hours like we're used to. And that can be pretty difficult on the caregiver. Paranoia and hallucinations. We kind of talked about that, like with my grandma, that we all left her abandoned at the church with her pies. Rummaging, which is kind of what you said, hiding things in her purse, or used to go into residents' rooms and they'd have every pill cup they ever used was stacked in the corner or in their drawer, or every napkin they ever used, they folded up and sat in the desk. They were hoarding and rummaging and going through other people's drawers, things like that. Sexual inappropriate behaviors is a very hard one for families, but it does happen at times where when they get towards that advanced dementia, they lose their inhibitions. And my son worked at the nursing home with me for a while. He was probably 16, 17 in the dietary. And one of the ladies was just extremely hypersexual. But it was his preschool teacher's mom, and it was just so hard because she was like, "Oh, hubba, you're a beauty," and he's like, "Here's your milk," it's like, "Oh my God," and how do you handle that? It's very hard for him to do that. But there is that we have to deal with at times. And then the difficulties eating, like I said, at times there could be swallowing issues. The body forgets that process. There's problems getting the fork to the mouth. We talked about spatial awareness and so it's difficult to get the fork in the right place, or as they're walking, their balance is disrupted because the floor looks uneven, or there's a dark rug and they think it's a hole, different things like that. So those are some of the behaviors that we're going to talk about tonight that are associated with dementia.
My dad had one that you don't have up
Oh,
there.
okay, with that.
He would steal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mom would have to watch him when we would go
The
into
stores.
Walmart or whatever, or, yeah. Which some of you knew my dad, and that was not him at all.
Yeah.
He's a very honest person, but.
Well,
yeah.
we talked about cussing too, is another one. I
Yes.
put that up there, but you have, your mom who was a church going, always slapped you in the mouth when you said the word turd or something, because that was a bad word back then. But then she got dementia and she cussed him like a sailor. So, so that inhibition and that thing that she always held her back or him back, is now gone. And so, or some people think that it's, they've been holding it back all these years. They're finally letting it out, their true colors are coming out. And then you'll have the meanest old man, and now they're the sweetest. So there's just no rhyme or reason, and it is what it is, and we just gotta keep figuring out the best way to help them. Okay? Anyone else? Any other ideas come
I
up?
just want to say, I have not been around my sister for a long time, but my niece brought her here on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and they left on Wednesday. And she talked about her just staying up all night at home.
Yeah,
But when she was here, we went and did things all day and did one thing or another. And she didn't take any naps or anything. And when she went to bed, she didn't even wake up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
She slept. Oh,
that's a great, that's one of the techniques, one of the interventions is if you have somebody who's having a really hard time, but they're also napping during the day, try to keep them busy. When they're living at the nursing home, the activity coordinator's job is really important. And I'll tell you, every day you go home from that job, you're exhausted because you have to bring the energy to keep everybody up. But that's great that you were able to keep her up and get her pattern in a better pattern. So, yeah.
That my niece was just totally amazed about that because that does not happen with them.
Yeah.
There
But
was-
is she home some by herself? So she's probably bored.
And she watches TV forever, and we hardly had the TV on,
Yeah.
and she was wondering about that. She
Yeah.
just didn't feel like that was regular people sort of.
Yeah.
But it was good for her to see that people have different ways to be.
Yeah.
And she ate what we had and all of that. But, that was one of the things that was a big problem
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah, and so hopefully maybe they can get her more things to do during the day or have people stop by and keep her awake a little bit. And yeah, good. See, we're already figuring out interventions, so that's great. Okay, anything else? Okay. So one thing I want you to walk away from today is that behaviors are caused by an unmet need. 1943, Abraham Maslow introduced the concept of the hierarchy of need. This hierarchy suggests that people are motivated to fulfill basic needs before moving on to the next one. These physiological and psychological needs motivate our actions and our quest of happiness. So it's not that's for us. I mean, if our physical needs are, if we don't have food, water, air, or, balance, then, everything else is just kind of out of balance. That lower portion is the big chunk of what we need in our life. So, and then security and safety. So shelter, comfort, control is a big one for most of us. Socialization, those relationships, we all, even though some of us say that we're just introverts and after COVID, nobody wants to go out, but our innermost being loves to have a connection with other people. So, going to the senior center and spending time with other seniors, it's really valuable and important because it builds our self-esteem. We feel appreciated, respected, hopefully respected wherever you go. And we get our personal worth and value from just the interactions that we have with other people. So I just want you to remember that these behaviors that you're seeing they're communicating to you that they have a need that's probably being unmet. And so our goal is to try to determine what that is. So we've identified the behaviors. Now we need to determine what the unmet need is. And so here are just kind of a list of things that, when I have somebody who is acting, rummaging into other people's stuff or going in and out of other people's rooms, first thing I'm going to wonder is they probably need to use the restroom possibly. So maybe they're looking for that. If they're not able to communicate verbally what's going on, then these are some of the things I always think about and check when you have a behavior. What is the need behind the behavior? What are they trying to communicate? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need to go to the bathroom? Are they overly tired? So we're looking at that sundowning piece of it. Are they in pain? That's a huge one. And that's a lot, what I've learned from the nurses that I work with is I have people at nursing homes that are, at home they weren't too bad, but they get into the nursing home and they, for some reason, when they got there, the doctor didn't didn't, the tramadol or whatever, one of their pain meds didn't get moved over. And so they start having all these behaviors and everybody just thinks it's because you put them in the nursing home. Well, then you get look through the list of meds and you're like, well, wait, this person had horrible arthritis their whole life. And there's nothing on here except for Tylenol, PRN. So their pain is not being treated and they're trying to tell you that. And so that was a huge one for me, that when somebody who doesn't normally have really bad behaviors, but now they're hollering and hitting with care, I would really wonder if their pain is not being treated very well. So that's a big one to think about. I mean, even just having a headache and someone trying to move you or whatever, sometimes that can be really hard, or a toothache. Ask Tricia how fun life is with a toothache. So, or they're hot, they're cold, and they just can't communicate those things to you, because we know number one thing is difficulty communicating. A lot of times that speech is really one of the first things that's affected, like you can't find the word to say. They're uncomfortable, constipated, upset stomach. Some of the emotional needs that might not be met is that loneliness, or they're really afraid. And some of the training videos that I've watched throughout the years, one of them is, they say, you know, like, pretend that you're at home and shut your eyes and you wake up and you're sitting on a bench in Chicago and you have no idea how you got there. You have no idea where you're at. All the people around you are strangers. Well, that's kind of what it's like for some people with dementia. Like, they fall asleep and they wake up and they have no idea where they're at or who the people are that are around them. And so that fear is a huge behavior motivator. So we got to really be aware of that. They're just annoyed at you. I mean, do your spouses get annoyed at you today? I know I annoy mine. So, so, you know, that's going to happen even if I get dementia or he gets dementia. You know, it's something that just happens when we were in relationships with each other. So I could probably make him angry at times too. Are they bored? That's another big one, is like you said with your sister, she's just sitting around watching TV, no interaction, no shopping, no friends around. And so she's pretty bored, and she probably doesn't know enough to, you know, put a puzzle together or go out for a walk, or, you know, I don't know if that's safe for her, but boredom is a big one for behaviors. Yeah.
I have a question. So on board, what are some, if you are really not very strong, like you don't get out a lot, you know, you either use a wheelchair or a walker at all times. So, and you can't really do a lot of things. What would be some other things you could do?
I want to open that up to you guys, because I know you had some great ideas last night.
How old is he?
88.
Does he like to do puzzles and things like that?
Can't see, he has
Macular degeneration.
so his vision and.
Music, does he
We
like
have
to do
that.
that?
Music.
Books
Very
on
good.
tape. Have you done, it stimulate the brain for books on tape.
Books on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one in the
But
library.
Adolf taught here, there's this little, like, somebody in town makes them, and it looks like a little Afghan that was crocheted. It has all these little things.
Yep.
Right.
So we tried it.
No.
Oh, that was a joke. You looked at it, put it way over here.
Was your dad mechanical?
He is.
So one things we did for our residents was we had our maintenance guys put together a mechanical board that had, you know, a screw over here that was big nuts, and, you know, and you gave them a wrench if they're safe enough. Or
It's like a busy box.
yeah, a busy box would be something too, something that relates to things that he enjoys.
No, yeah, because
Yeah.
he thought those little things on there were like.
Yeah, and a lot of those are more
He didn't
female
want to have
oriented.
anything to do
We
with
gave it back.
Yeah,
even those little fidget things.
Oh, yeah, we tried.
Try that.
that hurts my brain, those things do.
And he's like,
We just wish there was something he could do.
pushing his weight.
Yeah, and you just gotta keep trying to not give up. But yeah, you can Google like do male
trying to find a
fidget
picture
blankets
for
or
it.
something.
Okay.
Or not blankets, but yeah, our maintenance guys came up with some really neat ideas,
And he
like blocks.
With help.
Yeah.
Right, no, he can't ride, and he can't walk, no.
I mean, with help, he can walk, but he can't walk by himself.
Do you think he would work with Legos,
And like larger.
the larger one?
Larger ones too.
He doesn't really have to see him, and you give him something, you know, to build.
Was he a carpenter? Lincoln Logs. I still
Yes, we have a
love
whole
Lincoln
back
Logs.
shop full
Yeah, he was.
of, let me try it. Well, you know,
Keep trying it,
yeah,
try it.
yeah, because he looks really bored over there.
Yeah.
Eagle Scout contract, so.
Oh, no, we haven't almost done.
You know.
Yeah, oh, those are some good ideas for us to try. Yeah, okay, thank you all.
Let's see, the overstimulation is another one that, you know, sometimes, especially if they're at long-term care, and that's where most of my experience comes from. So if other people have other ideas, like if you take them to the Walmart and it's just like too much, and you can tell they're getting anxious, they're getting frustrated, they're, you know, talking a lot more, repeating themselves, then that's probably a sign that they're overstimulated and you need to clear the air. You need to get out of there and get them someplace where they can just decompress. Worried, confusion, disoriented, embarrassed. You know, a lot of times people, we talked about this yesterday, stop socializing because they know there's a problem and they're embarrassed about it. So, but that stepping back from the social engagements actually is doing them more harm than good. I kind of talked yesterday about how a couple that I used to work with, their friends quit inviting them out to their regular dinners or quit coming over to the house because it was uncomfortable for them. They didn't know how to communicate with the husband. And the wife kind of laid into him. She says, "You're not doing that test. You're going to learn just like I'm learning we're going out together and you're going to keep him as involved as possible. And I have a hard time and you have a hard time, that's okay. We're having a hard time with him and that's okay." So, you know, that way he wouldn't have to be embarrassed anymore because his friends were continuing to treat him the same way. So I think that's really, really important to just think about when put yourself in their shoes. I think that's a really good way to look at it is how would you want to be treated in the same situation? Any other thoughts of different needs that maybe we didn't talk about that they could be trying to get you to understand?
Our last seminar, I mentioned that sometimes not only when they wake up, like you said, and they don't know where they are, but my mother-in-law, she didn't know what day of the week it was or what the date was. And so I bought her one of those electric calendars. Looks like a electric picture frame slide thing, but all it does is it just shows the day of the week and the date and month. And so you'd come over and you'd have a conversation and you could see her looking at that because if we're talking about something coming up in a few days, she'd be like, okay, there. And then we also had a magnetic weekly calendar that we put on the fridge so we could write down what days we were planning to come over. We took turns as a family coming to see her and she could see who's coming on what day and then see it on that electric calendar to kind of try to put things together.
Yeah. And they do have those calendars and those clocks that you push a button and it reads it to you if you have the vision issues. Or it'll say it out loud. So if you can hear, if you have vision issues and hearing issues, that's harder. But yeah.
Oh, he can hear.
Okay.
I didn't see. You'll take the tiniest little thing on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you can't see.
Well,
Vacuum.
yeah. We talked about that today at a meeting I had that the vision, although their eyes are healthy, the doctor has told that, you know, kind of their eyes are healthy. But their connection to the brain and the eyes is not healthy. So they can't, you know, if you read a word, it has to get to your brain and then you have to interpret that word. And that doesn't happen anymore. So like a lot of times their vision does seem to be changed. And that's why the balance, spatial awareness is off because that connection is just getting all messed up because of the disease. So he may not be fooling you all the time. Okay, I don't know. Okay, so communication. So we had our identify the behavior, determine the unmet need, and then communicate understanding. And I think it's really important to know that there's 4 types of communication, and you're the one that is sending, you know, they're sending you messages and you're trying to interpret them and receive them and understand what they're saying, but your communication back to them is kind of what I want to focus on today. And so obviously there's the verbal, nonverbal, visual, and written. So the verbal is, what you're saying. We talked already about this, that simple instructions is better than, hey, I need you to go get me that pen over there on that table and also grab the milk while you're there. That's a big, long list of things for somebody to do and a lot of steps. But if you're working with somebody who has dementia, it's a lot better to be very simplified in your instructions. So like a 1-year-old, you're gonna kind of dumb it down. I don't know how else to say it, but keep it very simple. Yeah.
I think a very important thing about the verbal part is a lot of people, when they start getting frustrated as a caregiver, start saying, remember, I told you.
Mhm.
And we've learned that that is not healthy because that will frustrate them more because they're like, no, I don't remember. So I mean, saying that is almost like insulting or really can hurt their feelings or confuse them because obviously they are having trouble with their cognitive. So it could take you some time to learn what not to say too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I see that a lot with spouses, like, I know that he knows, and just the frustration in a lot of the women when the men just don't know anymore. And they've always depended on them to be the mind for them. And so I see that a lot where I just know he knows. He knows. Do you remember? Yeah, I used to say to my mom every time we go see my grandma, she'd go, do you know who I am? Oh, that was the worst thing. I just walk in and say, hey, grandma, it's Jill. I mean, that way there's no guessing.
right.
I don't remember half your names already. I'm terrible with names. I remember Mike. So it's really, that's why we have you sign in.
Early
back.
songs.
I know. That's why I'm doing this. So yeah, I don't know. The names are just hard for people and I get embarrassed because I don't remember. Like when I'm with my husband and he obviously recognizes everybody in the world because if you met them once and he remembers their names. And I'm always like standing there like, I have no idea who this person is. I haven't got him trained well enough yet to say, hey, Joe, how are you doing? Or whatever to the person. So then I can remember their name, but we're working on it. But yeah, so that, like you said, saying remember is a tough one. So the content, the pitch, obviously, if you're frustrated and you talking to them in a tone or a pitch in a certain way that's condescending, and I know you know what I'm talking about, Mom. Yeah, sternly. So it's very important just to be alert and aware, of how you sound. Sometimes I'm like, my husband's like, did not sound like that. I'm like, oh, yes, you did. As a parent, you sound different to your children and just good things to remember. Your facial expressions, your posture, your actions, your gestures, and eye contact. So important. So our goal is to connect through the communication. Yes.
And if it's somebody that is comfortable with hugging, I
Mhm.
know that worked very well for my mother-in-law. Just when I could tell she's frustrated and I just give her a hug and she just, because like you said, they can be scared
Mhm.
because they don't know why they don't remember.
Yeah.
Or if they're not a hugger, maybe it's just a simple,
Massages, if there's somebody you're comfortable with and you can just tell they're tense and they like massages, then see if they want them, even just a hand massage. Or my sister's got this weird thing, she just loves it when you just rub her hand. It's just like that, and it must just be something that's very calming for her, so. But yeah, I think it's really important when, in a lot of the trainings, your approach to your loved one, is very important. We talked about at the nursing home when people would just, oh, there's Joe, he's all wet, I gotta go, get him changed. They walk up behind the wheelchair and start pushing away. And they haven't even, announced to him what's going on. It's really important to make that visual contact first, and then verbal. And I think this comes up later on, visual, verbal, and then the physical touch, because you don't want to startle them. And you obviously want to communicate to them what you are doing and why. Because if you come and push me in my chair and I don't know what the heck's going on, I'm going to have a behavior. And it's not going to be very pretty. I'm going to scream, yell, and probably put my feet down and break my leg. And, all kinds of things can happen really negative from just bad behavior on our end, really is what it is. Our approach is wrong. So think about the verbal, the nonverbal. The visual is an object or pictures or charts. And sometimes that works with people. Like I said, if they just really don't know where the restroom is and their reading is not good, or they have really bad eyesight, but you have a picture of the toilet. You know, this is the bathroom on your bathroom wall, you know, door, if you keep it shut or whatever, that may work, to help figure out where they're going. Or I have a client who is really great. They have been using this system for a long time. His wife sometimes gets very scared when she can't find him and he's just outside in the yard or he's in the garage or something like that. So they came up with this really neat flip chart that he made on his computer, and wherever, if he's going out to the garage, he puts it on the table and she knows when she wakes up and she can't find him to go look at that table. She still knows that much. Or he went to the grocery store or whatever, and he's really good about putting that out there. So they figured out a system that's working for them, and that's kind of what you have to do too. So that's what those would be.
For us, somebody shared with us, and being a teacher, you know, you have those little rings and you make like, yes, I work hard, okay? Well, we did it with our family pictures, and our names were on the top and a picture of us, and then our cell numbers on the back, every grandkid, and so, because he can't talk to people, he could at least flip. And he
Say
wanted,
who
he
he
wanted to
wants to
talk to her or yes, something. So that really helped as we had, you know, like Angel's Care coming in or somebody, you know, who may not know his tones like we do. And so that really helped.
Good, yeah. So you
You
gave
know.
it for him to communicate that to you
Yeah,
too.
and I
So
was
it's
gonna
really
do it with the car and the whole thing, just like you were saying, like,
Mhm.
oh, you need medicine, oh, Dylan's, you know. But I never got it.
Well,
Good try, I can pull a picture.
yeah, this is completely off. But you know, those little dog things that they go, have you seen them on Facebook where they go and they hit this button and it's saying, I got a tummy ache? I mean, wouldn't that be great if we could all communicate that way, like potty, potty, potty. Yeah. Maybe that's what we need to work on. Who's the electrician?
Something out.
I think so. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, but
We
communicate.
have those assistive devices for
Yeah.
kids that are nonverbal.
Yeah, that's true. You can, and we did use those too for a couple people, but it's harder because you know, it's harder to learn new things as you get older. We talked about that last night. So if you're
Yeah.
introducing something that strange to them, it may be difficult for them to understand, but it's totally worth trying. You can
Pretty
try.
simple.
Yeah,
We kind of did the same thing with the phone, you know, for them to push the numbers and so forth like that. We actually put our pictures
yeah.
on, you know, the number,
Mhm.
and they could just look at the picture
Mhm.
and push that, and they would program it. So
Right.
they would call.
Right.
So, and a lot of, people I know now have those lovely digital, photo frames that pop up with new pictures all the time, and you can put in there who it is, because I know I got my mom and dad one, and put in there what the event was, so that they can always see that.
Or if they're a book reader, but they're not able to read anymore, you can, you know, go online to those sites where you just send them a whole bunch of digital pictures. And they'll
Yes.
make you just a book that just they'll just collage them all in there, and then they can just sit there and flip,
Yeah,
look at all the pictures.
yeah. Will you do that for me? I
Yeah.
need books. I keep seeing those. I want to do them for my grandkids and all that stuff. Everybody's call Trish, you need those done. Signs and notes, so that's just more of the written, so, you know, if again, if, they're having a hard time with hearing, then you could write out a letter or a note, use a whiteboard sometimes just to communicate what's needed. So that's just really important things about your communication with them and how you can help them communicate better with you.
Don't forget the power of sticky notes.
Oh, for sure.
I still have a drawer full.
From your mom.
My mother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't remember she needed to put her denture in the soaking tub, you know, that with the little Alka-Seltzer type tablet, you know, every night, but if I had a sticky note on there, and I went ahead and put the water and the tablet in before I left the house, I'd go there the next morning and then she had put it
Yeah.
in.
because she'd read it and
Because
she
she
knows
saw the
exactly what it's
note.
for.
Yeah.
Nice, good. Yeah. Okay. So kind of we were talking about these communication do's and don'ts. Really important to, again, make that visual contact first, eye level. If they're in a wheelchair, get down so that they can, you know, you were making that eye contact. Because if I come and lure over you, I mean, it's pretty intimidating, I think, at times. You're not doing what I want you to do, but I'm standing over top of you. So think about those kind of things as you're being the caregiver. It's really, I hope you have good knees. If you don't, make sure you have a chair that can come with you. So always connect visually, verbally, and then physically. So we kind of talked about that, smile and wave at them. Hey, how are you doing? And then just start kind of, it's Jill, and reach your hand out and they'll reach out and shake your hand. So then you already made that verbal, visual, and eye connection. Use a pleasant, encouraging, calming voice, and you can hear a smile, right? You all know that on the phone when you're talking to the telemarketers and scammers. You know, they're back there smiling really big. So you can hear that smile. So make sure you're smiling too.
Jill, you made a comment a little bit ago about approaching them.
Mhm.
Remember, when you're approaching them, don't do it quickly
Mhm.
and give them their space. My wife was the most pleasant person you would ever want to know, but one morning, one of the people that was helping me take care of her had to come in because I had to take somebody to the doctor, and she walked right up to her. She goes, "Good morning, how you doing?" Slap. We all just kind of, she didn't cuss, she didn't do anything, but boy, she slapped her good.
Yeah.
But she didn't give her the space. She
Yeah.
was right
Yeah.
in front of her.
Read them, read their beat, you know, it could be a really bad day, and having that time, that space to make that entrance can give you that time to understand where they're at today and whether or not that hug or that handshake is going to be appreciated or not. So, okay, explain what you're doing. I think that's a really important one that try to just beat in the heads of the aides sometimes is like, you know, don't just go in there and say, "I'm taking you to the bathroom." Well, that doesn't, okay, they may not really understand what you're saying. Say, "Hey, we're gonna stand up. Hey, we're gonna walk over here to this door." You know, really breaking, we talked about the simple path that you would have to do for a first grader. You know, we're gonna walk over here to this door. Oh, you know, and there's a lot of trouble getting their pants down, you know, those kind of things can be really difficult. So the simpler you make the task, the more likely they're gonna be able to follow through. So modeling, I'm not saying go to the bathroom with them next to them, but let's say we're having trouble with eating. So if my boss always said, if you're eating here at the facility, you're gonna be eating out with the residents next to them because it's just easier, it's more fun, the socialization. They look and they see that you're eating, they model what you're doing, or at times they might mirror what you're doing if you're sitting across from them. Or at some point, that you could do hand over hand, because the more you can allow them to do for themselves, the better. So if you're able to keep the fork in their hand, but your hand's on top of theirs, you can help them still be more independent. It feels like they're doing it themselves, but your hand is helping them lift it to their mouth. So that's a really good, communication way to get them to eat better. Always be respectful. You're frustrated and you're not feeling very respectful, take a break. You know, that whole timeout thing can be good for caregivers as well. You might need to put yourself in the corner for a minute so you can regather yourself, or tag team. It's hard when you're the only caregiver, but if you have a team and you have your support system in place, make that call. It's not a good day for me. I need you to come help, you know, or I'm done in 10 minutes. Somebody better be showing up because I'm walking out, you know, whatever your frustration is, have that plan for those emergencies. Because if you're not respectful to them, they're gonna know it and they're gonna retaliate. You're gonna have worse behaviors. This one's hard for me because obviously I like to talk, but wait patiently for a reply. A lot of times, you know, you ask a question and then they don't tell you answer it right away. So then you just ask it again, or you move on to the next thing, or you answer it for them. But their brain is working a lot of times and they're trying to get that out. They just need the extra minute or two. And so if you can just wait, the uncomfortable silence, you may get an answer. You may not, but it is just really important. If you can see that they're thinking and trying to process the question that you asked or whatever, really try to be patient and give them that time. Because when I'm good at it, I get some really great responses and I'm just like, that was the best conversation ever. And I just had to wait for it. Hand gestures, obviously like that too, but make sure they're not threatening hand gestures. But sometimes that modeling you can do with your, hey, we're gonna go brush our teeth, like you would with a child too. You know, we're gonna put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, and kind of showing them what action you're wanting to do with them if they're not really hearing as well. Pictures again can be good with trying to get them to do what you're needed. The good repeat the story over and over. Just act like you never heard it before and find something new that maybe they're telling you something different that you didn't hear before. And so That's a hard one, because you've heard it 20,000 times. And it's changed every time, because none of it's true, but it's a story that they're loving to tell you, and they're connecting with you, they're communicating with you, and so just enjoy. There's a really good book out there, it's called Creating Memories of Moments of Joy, and it's, I can send it out. I think it might be on the back side of that, but it's really a good one too, just about how we can find some joy in these days, even when we're frustrated. Validate, repeat what you hear. That is a technique that we're going to talk about later. It's called validation. I've had some really great conversations with people that are really advanced in their dementia. And if somebody walked by and listened to us, they would have no idea what we were talking about. And I don't know if you've ever heard like two people with really advanced dementia having the best conversation of their life, like laughing and giggling, and nothing's making you sit there and try to listen to what they're talking about. They have no idea, but they're connected visually. They're just picking out words that they can hear, and they think they're really on the same page, and they're just connected. And so I try to do that with people that are, maybe you just catch one word that's come out of a full long sentence that didn't make any sense at all. You repeat that word to them and they're like, ooh, she's listening. She did hear me. And so then that connection's made, and you can have some really fun, great conversations that way. I don't know if any of your people are that advanced, but it could be a pretty good conversation at times. So the don'ts, any other do's that you guys can think about or think of? That would be helpful. The don'ts are really important too. I'm a loudspeaker, and after you work in the nursing home, you just tend to get loud all the time, but that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Again, if you don't think they're hearing or listening, or they didn't respond the way you wanted to, it's probably not because you need to speak more loudly. Maybe you need to slow down or simplify what you're saying. This is a hard one. They're telling you stories that aren't true. I mean, that dog right there is perfectly happy and laying there, and there's no dog there, Mom. What are you talking about? Don't argue, don't correct, don't try to reason with them, because it is real to them. They're seeing it in their mind's eye. That's there. If they're not frightened by it, I had a lady who's like, spiders all over the wall. She's like, no, spiders don't bother me. It was just like, she knew that it was probably not real, but she could still see them, but it wasn't scaring her or upsetting her. So, we just let it go. Okay, there's spiders. So it's really hard. I think with spouses, it's really hard too, because you want them to be, like, that's not true. That's not how that went at all. I mean, we have that conversation now at this age. So I know I'm probably going to want to have it when we're older, when I know I'm right and he's wrong. I want others to know that too. So it is really important not to argue, because again, in their mind, they're right. What they're seeing is real. Don't say remember, or I already told you that, or you already told me that. It's just not a helpful statement at all. Don't treat them like children. It's called elder speak, and you hear it in probably every nursing home. Hey, darling, hi, honey, that really high pitch that you would talk to a child with. It's really demeaning, disrespectful, and unless they told you to call them sweetheart, do not call them sweetheart. Unless that's the nickname that they want to be called, I would not suggest using that. And honestly, the lower tones, I'm kind of lucky that I do have a lower voice. So the lower tones are easier to be heard a lot of times. So it's a hard one, because you think you're just being loving and kind, but it can really be viewed as the complete opposite of that when you're talking to them like they're a child. So just have an adult conversation with them the best you can, even if it's completely nonsense, but it's in an adult tone. I don't know if any of you have any experiences with that, or can't think. Yeah.
The example that you used with the dog,
Mhm.
I think that's a good one, where you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, they're way off on this one, but okay, there's a dog. Well, what's the dog's name? Do you know? Just kind of interject with them, get a conversation going, and it keeps them moving along. And nobody's right or wrong.
And some of these things that make no sense is because they're very well at remembering things from the past.
Mhm.
I mean, this could be something they're thinking of their dog when they were a child or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what they're seeing in their mind.
Yeah, so ask them questions about it, or the whole thing, like, my parents were just here yesterday visiting, and you know that they're 99, so their parents were not there just yesterday visiting. So just get to talking to them about who their parents, what are your parents' names? I'm not sure I ever met them. What were their names? What did they do? If they're able to still communicate those things, get them talking, their brain's working, even if it's working in a different century, it's working. So that's really a good way to keep that mind working. Again, don't be condescending, don't be commanding or lecturing. Again, they are adults. And most of the time they're your parents. And you don't want to, you feel like the parent to them a lot of times. But if you can just keep that adult conversation and as respectful as possible, it's really important. And don't interrupt kind of goes along with, be patient and wait for them to respond. Yeah.
I'm a hospice volunteer and I had Alzheimer's patient one time. And I was just like, I don't really know what to do. So I went to meet her. And they said that she was nonverbal.
Mhm.
So I thought, So I had been a teacher and I decided to take children's books, not because I was going to treat her like a child, but because I thought I would read to her. That was amazing because I read her The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And I said to her, I didn't speak down to her. I spoke to her as if I was just talking to someone. And I said, because the hungry caterpillar ate all these fruits, do you like strawberries? And she nodded her head and I thought, oh, she is getting this. And so she did that with me. But then one day I saw on her dresser that she had a picture of Jesus with the heart. And I thought, well, maybe I should bring Bible stories.
Yeah.
So that day when I came, she was down in the room where there are couches and things. And so I sat on the edge of the couch and I just watched because other people were there. And my book fell in her lap. And it was Moses in the basket and the bulrushes. And she said, out of her mouth, she said, they told me she was nonverbal. She said, are you having a baby? No, just in that she, because she had not spoken, so I felt like I
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, and that's the next few things that we're talking about are real similar to that, like music. I think we were talking earlier that the songs to word. I mean, I've never sang "You Are My Sunshine" so many times in my life, and people who you think never speak know the words to that, and or "Jesus Loves Me" or an old hymn that's just really common, and that rhythm and that pattern and the music, it's one of the last things to leave the mind. So it's in dance. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that Parkinson's, where the guy's, doing the little this, but then the music's on and he's like, oh, starts dancing because he's going with the rhythm and he's got these bigger steps and he's really making a difference, but it's all because of that music and the connections of the brains are getting, the brain is getting a little different rhythm to it. So that Parkinson's motion and stuff is put in the back burner for a while. So it's really neat what music and reading and just making that connection can do.
My
So
mother-in-law went by a piano in a facility to go see my father-in-law. And she sat down and started playing and none of her kids knew she knew how to play piano.
oh,
She
wow.
had never played piano the entire time they had been alive, and it was just something she remembered as a kid, taking
Wow.
piano lessons.
Yeah. We had a neat thing where the second languages, I don't know if it's real common around here, but we had a lady that we were taking care of who English was her second language and she was from France. And as her dementia progressed, she lost the English. And none of us knew French. So we got really good at the whole, gestures and figured, communicating in other ways besides language. So yeah, it was challenging, but good learning experience. So there's a couple techniques that I'm not gonna really delve into very big because it's so intense and there's lots of great information out there. Naomi File was a lady that came to our facility several times. The owner of our facility was a local man, and he was trained to be a validation theorist, so something like that. So validation is the mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to unfolding of experience moment by moment. Validation is a method of communicating and just being with someone who is disoriented. It is a practical way of caring that helps reduce stress, enhances dignity, and increases happiness. It's building on empathy and empathetic attitude and a holistic view of that person. So I think everybody that you guys have talked about today that you're caring for, you know really well. And that's important because as you're connecting with them, sometimes you may need to finish their sentence for them. So the more you know about them and the more you know about their life, the more you listen to that story they repeated 400 times, the better you can help them finish that story when they can't remember how it ends. So that's why that repeated story is so important too, because they may get to the point where they can start it. They can't finish it. They need you to do that for them. And so another good reason why to listen and pay attention. But validation, I put the website on here. If you validate someone, you accept them where they're at and where they're not. If you accept them, then they can also accept themselves. And Naomi File, there's just video after video. She has a really good one with a nonverbal lady that was just, at the really severe dementia, they get introverted, like there is no communication, hardly any eye contact. And as you watch this video with this elderly lady, Naomi gets in there and they end up head to head and face to face. Her hands are on her face, and she just starts singing to the music because Naomi's singing with her, and then she remembers the words to that song. And it's just amazing. It's just bringing you to tears. So, but there's lots of videos out there about the techniques that you can use just to connect and to be with that person. And sometimes our activity coordinator was so frustrated one time because we got this ding because somebody was on hospice and she didn't have an activity calendar plan for her or whatever. She didn't have activities set up for her, and she's dying. But she figured out really quickly that just sitting and being with that person and holding their hand was a connection, even though they couldn't communicate, or she would play her guitar for her, and you would see a change in her, that she would rest easier just knowing somebody was in the room. And so just because they are not communicating back doesn't mean that they don't know that you're there holding their hand or singing to them or whispering in their ear. So just remember how important that can be. So I really encourage you to look this up. These are all the principles. I'm not going to go through them. They're on the website too. That's a lot of words. I'm not a great reader. So. The second one, and Tifa Snow, she's been here to Hayes. I went to a couple of her trainings, but her approach is called the positive approach to care. And unlike other dementia programs, she has really good practical and hands-on techniques just for the daily living. You can also look up a lot of different things on her website, which is also on the paper. Again, it's similar to the validation where you find that connection and just learning how to communicate. Lots of videos on there. It's just really important to make that connection. And this is kind of just a little bit about the steps for the positive physical approach. And those are kind of some of the things we've already talked about, getting in their visual range, pausing a few feet away to see how they're reacting, open up your hand and face and smile, greet them, tell them who you are, and then reach out for a handshake, slowly approach, or the hand over hand thing. I don't know if I can show this because I'm not the greatest, haven't done it in a while. Can you stand up? So as you're coming in to say, hi, how are you doing? And you're wanting them to go with you. And then you just walk with them this way, and they just walk alongside with you because you've made that physical connection. And then you are able to turn that into with me, let's go this way, you know, and that was pretty simple, because she knew what I wanted her to do, but it doesn't work.
You had me.
Yeah, yeah, but you made that connection and you turned and you made another connection against each other. So, some of those kind of things are really shown on there really well. And I just encourage you to research, because if you're here because you want to know, and there's so much education out there, to learn. So I'm not going to get it all in tonight because they would be so mad at me. Tried to talk about it. You're here till 10. Okay, so we've done identify behavior. What is the need? How do we communicate that we understand what they need? And we do that by responding to their need. Provide for that physical need. If maybe they're wet, or maybe they're hungry, or maybe they're just bored. Maybe they're tired. So you're going to encourage rest. You're going to turn the lights down. You're going to give soft music or get them away from all the noise and commotion. You're going to relieve that pain. You know, there's a lot of ways to tell if somebody who's nonverbal has pain. You know, if there are grimaces on their face, you could tell by the brow. If you're turning them, if they're hollering, obviously they're either afraid or they're in pain. Really try to do best to meet that physical or that emotional need in whatever way you can. And one of the things I think is really important is to focus on what they can do and not what they can't do. It's like, God, you could do this yesterday. Why are you folding me so terribly today? You know, or, you know, things like that. It's like, okay, today's not a good day to fold. Let's try something else to do. Just trying to keep them as active in the things that they can do, for as long as they can do it, and really and letting go of the things that they can't. And quit trying to get them to do it. I mean, it's worth it because like I said, one day she can, next day she can't, next day she can. So it doesn't hurt to try again, but not harp on it and keep, you know, make them feel bad about not being able to do it, because it's really not in their control. Okay, last step is to evaluate your response, because, you know, it doesn't always work. Ask yourself these questions. Did the way that I responded to my mom today meet her need? Was I able to figure it out? Did it decrease or increase her behavior? And what can I do differently next time? Did I keep them safe or other people safe, by the way that I responded? What could you do differently next time? And could the situation have been avoided? So we're talking about a need. Another word I used, I think last time, was trigger. What was the trigger? What triggered that event? And that leads me to a story where every day at 10 o'clock, this program would come on this lady's TV, and the TV show was about a mother and a daughter, and they were always bickering and always fighting. And she would be sitting in there, and the staff would have her in there watching it, and it would just, to her, that was really happening around her. I mean, and how many of you really enjoy being around people fighting? Not fun. Yeah, and sometimes the things on TV they think are real. So it is really important to know that person. And that was a trigger. So after that show was over, she was in a horrible mood all day long. She wanted to get home. She needed to go. And so once the staff kind of figured out, ooh, that's not a really good show for her, they eliminated that show and went to something different, totally different response, because they were able to modify the thing that was triggering the behavior. Not always easy to figure out, but it is something to think about. It's like, what happened right before this incident? Yeah.
Is there anything commercially or otherwise available for entertainment for dementia type cases? See,
There's exercise programs, you know, but like, say that again.
you want to show them kids shows.
I mean, if they like it, that's
Yeah.
fine, but no, not the ones nowadays. They're horrible. There's no Roadrunner. No, I don't.
Not old westerns, probably.
Actually, that's what people like, the old guys that, you know, a lot of, they do like the old westerns, and they don't get bothered by it. Now, obviously, if they think that's really happening, they're ducking under the seats.
Yeah.
That's not a good show for them, but, yeah.
I know my friend, she's I'm still in high school, so she's like a training CNA. And I don't know if this is the proper term, I've always done it, the old folks home, right? They play Bluey, which is like a recent, like, Australian dog.
Yeah.
And she's like, they'll pile in and they'll sit in there and they just watch their show.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
I either want to play that, or you know, definitely have, right? Like, you definitely want to have something, a positive outlook, or I mean, what I would do is maybe play something from their childhood.
Yeah.
So I know, like, my grandpa, he likes to watch MASH,
Mhm.
and quite frankly, I like to watch MASH. I need that, like,
Pictures.
Yeah.
yeah, or go bond with like John Wayne, and stuff like that. And so trying to look at their background, like growing up, like my grandpa, we grew up in a kind of a cowboy setting, right? So we did that. Or somebody like with modernly in the 70s. But I'm a Brady Bunch.
Yes, no, that's a great idea.
That's what I was personally.
Yeah. Well, and if you know that in the past, they really enjoyed card games, but now they can't play pitch anymore or something like that. You know, some entertaining things you could do is Uno. It's a very simple game. We took a tray, like a pool tray, and they would pass it around the table. So everybody was playing Uno. It was just, because you can't reach, that's kind of hard. Sometimes it's, but yeah, Uno was a real simple game, or dominoes, or,
Have you ever seen Racco?
yeah,
Really
yeah.
simple.
That is good too.
Just
Just
order.
putting them in order, if they can still do that, yeah,
Game shows are a good one too.
yeah. I know there was a lot of exercise shows
Let's
for the elderly now, and so that
really get into
you
that.
can YouTube those videos and stuff for exercise too, because yesterday we talked about how important exercise is. I don't know what time it is. Okay, how are we doing? Any questions about evaluating? I did put in here just a couple scenarios, but I think we've had a really good time of, viewing things. This was Jane had moderate Alzheimer's. She struggled to get her thoughts out verbally. After relaxing with a cup of coffee, Jane started getting up and wandering around the home anxiously. She was going in and out of rooms, opening cabinet doors, just really being a pain to the staff. Jane was getting upset with her caregivers because they just kept saying, sit down, you can't be in there. Don't go in there. And Jane kept saying, help me, help me, help me. So the behavior, obviously with this is the wandering, in and out of other people's things, the repetitiveness. It was determined that she was looking for the restroom. She had had that big cup of coffee and it was time. And so she couldn't communicate that. She couldn't find the bathroom. So once the staff was able to figure out what was going on, and they were like, oh, you need the restroom. Well, let's go do that. And they approached her appropriately and took her to the restroom and helped her with that need. And then, we evaluated the response, but probably yelling at her when she got up. We should have known the minute she stood up that there was something she needed. It could have easily been, she'd been sitting there for 2 hours and her butt was sore. I mean, you all have been sitting here for 2 hours. How did you have to get up? So, but you were able to do that on your own, and somebody who has dementia may not be able to do that. So, yeah.
How do you determine what exactly they do need?
Huh?
How do you determine what exactly they do?
It's trial and error. And that's why I said getting to know them better is in knowing what their situation was. Like if you knew that they've been sitting there for an hour or two, or that they just ate or had a big glass of water, or a lot of times they're just bored and or they saw a bird fly outside and now they want to go figure out what was that, and they want to get outside. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh crap, I was gonna say, humans are behavioral creatures, right? Like I know I get up in the morning, and whether when I admit it or not, I'm gonna turn off my first alarm to get up at the second one. Get up and brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, right? So I guess another thing that could help is if you gave her or him like her breakfast like 15 minutes before, and then usually after about 15 minutes, she's gotta go to the bathroom.
Yep.
Or on the same time, whether you know it or not, your body will learn.
Mhm.
So that could be helpful.
Schedules, yeah.
And I just kind of warmed up, so that's why I'm talking a lot now. Like I said earlier, I don't kind of dumb it down, but I'm kind of the babysitter when it comes to my grandpa. Because they'll go in and then mom and the helper will go around and do what they needs to be done. And I just sit there and I watch him eat and I'm like, that's such a pretty good, do you like it? He's like, oh yeah, and it came in and she's like, that's the most he's ever eaten.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then I knew, well, he's a little tired, because quite frankly, I am.
Yeah.
So it's just timing as well.
Yeah.
And like
You
you
spend all that
schedule,
time.
you could kind of set them up for like a schedule, like, hey, your program's on, do you want to go watch it? And then, they might need a nap after.
Yeah. Yeah, those are great.
You live the day with them, you understand what they're going through or what their needs are, because you probably have some of the same needs.
I mean, that's why they do it even in school. It's like, okay, it's lunchtime, then maybe it's recess, then it's quiet time.
Exactly. Routine is really important with dementia. If you can get into it, obviously, but you also have to be flexible because they don't know that that's their routine a lot of times. So you have to but a routine is better. Let's say they're incontinent a lot, but if you take them to the bathroom about every 2 hours, you may avoid having some accidents. So that's a really great suggestion. Thank you.
But the fact that you were there and keeping him company was a big thing.
Mhm.
I didn't know
He
that.
eats a lot more. He's just, you know, that's been eating there with him. But if you're just there, sometimes the gals that do come in, they're sitting there just making their notes in that, in their log and stuff. And it's just that company, that connection. But when you are eating, we can go into his village inn. Yeah, it'll take us 2.25. And that's the thing is you take the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got a sibling that all that, the red right hand, it's like, yep. It's like, don't talk to him like that. Don't do, please stop.
Yeah.
And
Better if you're not here.
yeah.
You're making it worse.
Yeah, and it's just that how much, one thing that I had to quickly learn is what's it gonna hurt kind of thing, like the stories or the repetitiveness. And he's very, there's a word for it. Anyway, I'm getting it too, which is very scary. So, he's very mechanical on things and very,
Hands-on, does he like to use his hands or?
yes, but not, it's gotta be adult manly stuff. It can't be, oh, that's for kids.
Yeah, we go out in the garage.
That, yeah, but, hardwired, that's the word I was looking for. If you do things with him, then it'll go a lot smoothly and, totally, I want to be honest in this group, I totally lost my train of thought. And no, it's very scary. It is because I was not like this.
Yeah.
I was one of those, like, I've had, this is TMI, but I've had exes that say, you could have been a stenographer and attorney the way that you are too, because I can pinpoint everything, I can remember, but, and that's what I'm here. That's what
It is, we talked about yesterday, taking your family with you to appointments to help you remember, because.
Let's not forget that the caregiver is why we're all here.
Yeah.
That you have to realize that, you know, if you feel like, you know, like I can't remember like I used to or something, you're under a lot of
Yes.
stress.
Oh, yeah,
By taking
absolutely.
care, taking
My dad
care
says,
of
oh,
someone.
it's like, I'm not too far behind. And he
Yeah.
is about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that, I remember now, it's that, what is it gonna hurt 10 minutes doing this? I mean,
Right.
is it gonna really mess up your world or your day?
Yeah, if
And
they're safe in what they're doing.
Yes.
And it's, not hurting
my
anything.
brother was with us one time at Walmart, we were leaving, and all he wanted to go and put the cart in the little, the little road before we left, because we just had one set.
Putting the car away like you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, no, let's go. No, we gotta go. And he was like, I gotta put it away. I mean, it's
Yeah.
John, just.
Let it go. Let it go.
I know.
Got the Frozen song in my head. So, yeah,
I
good.
think, I just like,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to make it too long.
It's their fault, not mine.
I think, I've always been a people person and I've always been, okay, give me a baby. I can entertain for hours. I like old folks because then I can ask them more questions. And I try to put them in my place. Cause like, okay, he's a grown man, lived by himself for a while. Why am I telling him, you need to be that man? Tell you, right? Or, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and my boss is a really good saying about, we give our grandchildren a lot of space to fail. Like they're learning, yes, you're gonna fall and stumble, or yeah, that's, don't put that in your mouth, that kind of thing. But then when we get our elderly parents or whatever, we feel like they don't have the right to make those choices for themselves anymore. And that's not true at all. We have the right, the right to fail and to make mistakes still. And as long as they can, make choices. I've had people where they should not have been home, but honestly, they were there was nothing we can do. Nobody could force them to do, to leave their home. So, even calling EPS on them, things like that, they still ended up staying right home because they were still cognitive enough to know their choice was bad, but they're still gonna. So, yeah. Sometimes it's just allowing them those time. So I did but I know it's really tiny, so get your magnifying glasses out. There are some interventions for wandering, that repetitive speech. I do want to get to the caregiver part, so I'm going to skip through these. Just another scenario that we had about a severely demented gentleman and having trouble with communicating and is really high anxiety. And it's actually made me think of when you said your wife got mad at you and told you last night. Do you want to tell that story?
My wife got to the point, probably, I retired and she lived 4 years after I retired. I stayed on to take care of her. Probably a year into that, she stopped eating. So the only way to feed her was like finger foods. And we have like an L shape, okay, and the food's over here, she's sitting over here. One of the things I found out is if I came into the room and stood in front of her and I fed her constantly, she'd take maybe 3 bites and that was it, she'd stop. But if I left the food over here and I walked back and forth, she would eat everything I gave her. But when she could still walk, I was kind of chasing after her, trying to give her food, and she stopped, like on a dime, turned around and gritted her teeth and pointed at me, and she goes, "Don't fuck with me." And this will never pass. I came home from work one night and our youngest son was in the kitchen with my wife and she's washing his mouth out with a bar of soap.
Yeah.
He used the F word. So I just kind of backed away like, okay, fine, I'm going back to the kitchen.
And that was a great response too.
Yeah.
Instead of getting mad at her for, or mother or wife, why would you say that?
She would kill me if I told you people that she really would, because she was a very prim
Yeah.
and proper lady. But I can remember, again, this is one of the things I can tell you is you got to be flexible, but you also have to have a structured day as things go on. Because if you don't, if you just kind of play it by ear, they get really messed up. But if you have a structure to it, and you can kind of tell too, like, okay, every 2 hours we go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. Well, one morning we got up and I always bathed her, dressed her, combed her hair. For a while there, I put makeup on too, and I was really getting good at it. But I would do it in the bathroom and I would do it sitting her on the toilet, okay? She'd sit there because she couldn't get away from it. Okay, we did all of it there. I got her all done, which usually took about an hour. We stood up and I was going to help her walk out of the bathroom and she just lost it. She wet herself, dirtied herself the whole bit. And I remember that comment, when something happens and it gets the best of you, just walk away from it. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna walk away from this. So I turned her around, she faced the vanity and there's a big mirror there and I pulled her pants down. And of course, being an adult, she's wanting to know what's going on back there and her hands are back there and it's all over everywhere. And I'm frustrated as hell, excuse my language, but I'm pulling her pants down, trying to get everything off to get her into the shower again and do that. And all of a sudden she leans forward and she goes, "Well, hello there." She saw herself in the mirror and she thought it was someone on the other side.
Didn't recognize
Cutest
yourself.
thing I'd ever seen. Of course, I'm sitting there thinking, thank you, God, it brought a smile, we had a laugh. Didn't make it so bad anymore, but it's interesting how they'll pop something in on you, but don't let it fool you either. When you're thinking, man, we had a good day, things are improving. And then the next day, all hell breaks loose. If it's cloudy outside or windy, those are bad. Those were always bad days. Always. And it's something, the barometric pressure, I think, was. And another thing I can share with you, when you go to the doctor with them, ask questions. Do not, because we're all trained, the doctor says, this is what you take, this is what you take. Well, after a while, it's getting to the point, like, we're taking this medication for the side effects of this one that we stopped taking 3 months ago. Why are we still taking this one? So you ask, and
It's really important too, when they're at the doctor's office too, to ask them if they can still communicate for themselves. Don't talk over them. Let them talk, and hopefully you have a good doctor that's not going to just talk to you.
right.
They're going to try to involve them in that too. Because again, if they can still do it, let them do it. let them be a part of that. Again, there's all these little interventions you hopefully can read, give them space, Jerry, that's what you did, redirect, change the room, gentle touch, just distractions. Sorry, we didn't get into a lot of the interventions, but the sexual inappropriateness, a lot, when that happens in a facility, it's so alarming, somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing, just give them privacy. It is allowed, so just make sure that they're doing what they're doing in a private place. We'll go on. Bathing interventions, and of course, the paranoia and hallucination interventions. I don't know how much you guys want to go into this, but I did want you to have the information. I didn't really plan on going through a lot of them tonight. But last time we really hit on these pretty good, so. Eating difficulties, kind of talked about smaller meals maybe and chasing them around the room with finger foods is a good idea until she turns on you. But also checking to make sure, again, the medical thing, remember we're supposed to identify, sometimes somebody's not be eating and they have a toothache or a cold sore or something and you're giving them apple juice and it's burning and you just gotta learn to read, figure it out. You have to be a really good investigator and put that hat on and try to figure out what's going on.
You can lose your sense of taste too.
Yeah.
My grandpa, he put like an obscene amount of Cholula on his retainer. I'm like,
Yeah, here's the Tabasco, always been a Tabasco guy, and now that it's lessening.
I was like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
I am too, but he's putting it on there, and he's like, no, and he took a bite, and he didn't have any facial reaction.
My grandma's was red hot on or Pizza Hut pizza. She would like dump the whole thing on
Oh
there.
my gosh.
Yeah, she loved it. So, yeah. Caregiver burnout. Face some of those, here are some of the signs to really be watching for. Anger, irritability towards your loved one, towards your family, towards people that aren't doing their own, or not helping out as much. Sorry, guys. If you're having difficulty falling asleep or you're overtired during the day, you're withdrawing socially from other activities, your anxiety, your depression, lack of motivation, feeling lack of energy, difficulty concentrating, you're having increased health issues as well. Those are all signs that you probably don't have the right system in place. You're overstressing yourself. So if those are things that you're starting to see, it's really good time to get a plan in place. And number one thing that you can do is take care of yourself. We talked really good about that, even being good if you're the person that has a dementia diagnosis. Yesterday, we talked about all those healthy things that you can do. And it's in the notes. It's steps for a better brain, break a sweat, hit the books, butt out, that's his favorite. That's don't smoke. Heart healthy diets, heads up, wearing helmets if you're riding motorcycles and bikes. Eat right, catch your Z's, take care of your mental health. So if you do have depression, talk to somebody about it. We were talked about medication for depression is completely a good thing. If it's helping you, then don't ever feel bad about needing it.
Just like to mention on that.
Yep.
Kim's mom took care of her mother-in-law alone for years.
Yeah.
And when it was finally all over, I mean, we saw the change in her personality as a caregiver. Just saying this as a real big warning. It literally took years for her to actually come back to normal. I mean, it was so devastating, so devastating.
There is a
She had to
statistic.
not have those kind of support.
Yeah. There's a statistic that, even with clients that we take care of at our office, they come in and you're like, oh, obviously you're the well spouse and you're the sick spouse that's probably gonna go to long-term care. There is a pretty high statistic of that caregiver, that well spouse dying before the sick spouse does. And that's mainly stress related. So it's really important. So, besides taking care of yourself first, because if you're not healthy, it's the whole airplane thing. If you don't put your oxygen mask on, you're gonna pass out before you take care of your kid anyway. So put yours on first and then take care of your child or your elderly person sitting next to you. Building a support system. It's really important to know what's available. And that's kind of what our whole group is about is there are not always a lot in Western Kansas. It's kind of we have a desert out here in some of the support systems that we need. And so that's what we're trying to create. We've got our caregiver support groups that are going on now. Our ultimate goal as our group, our committee, is to mimic a program out of Leavenworth that it does adult daycare 1 day a week, and they do adult bus rides 1 day a week. And that is to give that caregiver a break. And they take the person with dementia for about 4 or 5 hours, and that person that's being the caregiver gets that break, gets to go do some things on their own. And so that's our goal. So hopefully soon and very soon.
Adult daycare.
No, I did, is that what I said?
Yes.
Well, we
Oh,
call
I
it memory
slapped
care
me.
program. Yes.
It's a club.
But
We're gonna
also-
start a club. Yeah.
Also, for a lot of us who have been caretakers and been in your shoes before, it's good, I think, especially Jerry, I feel like having a sort of a community of people that know that you're not alone doing this.
Yeah.
Because you feel like that, a lot of people are proud in this area, they don't want to talk about this kind of thing, so you don't know who to talk to. Or people are in denial about things, whether it's another family member or people you can see are struggling. Or trying to get it more transparent and talkable, and have people come to our group to be able to just not feel alone about it.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
Right.
absolutely not.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It really is, because most people take care of people with Alzheimer's and dementia in their home. They really do.
And
So
it's-
ask for help,
Yes.
Yeah.
Accept it too.
accept help, take time off. If you have some family members that can come and sit, so you can go to Walmart or get your hair done or whatever, make that plan. I heard a really good thing, you go to church and at church, hi, I know you're taking care of your mom. How are things going? Is there anything I can do? What's the standard answer? Oh, we're doing all right. Thank you. And you walk away. No, get their name, get their phone number. I don't have an idea right now, but I am gonna think of one. And I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna have you come over with a meal, because there's gonna be a day when I'm so stressed out, or I need my haircut next week. Are you available? I mean, seriously, think of those things, have them lined out. I know there was a lady that talked about her husband loved to be active and do crafts, and she was just always trying to come up with something that he liked to do. And so when the ladies from church were like, is there anything we can help you guys with? Yes, I need toilet paper rolls. Could you just save me toilet paper? Or, I'm really I need some glass jars because we're doing a painting project. Or, just instead of taking on that expense yourself, if people are asking, then they really do have that desire to help you. They just don't know how, and you don't even know how to ask them. But if you seriously take time, make a plan, take their number, have that list and use it, it's really gonna save you a lot of headache and a lot of stress. So, build up that community support.
I just want to hop on that because you said church. And if anybody asks, or says they'll pray for you, say, let's do that right now.
Absolutely.
Help them out. Help them out.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna remember later. My mind is not like. Let's do that right now. Yeah, keep your sense of humor, obviously, is a really important one, and having those friends that you can talk to, or, yeah, it's okay to complain about your situation. Just don't complain in front of the person that's got dementia, but go out for coffee or whatever and let that release out there. And it's okay to laugh about it, because what else are you gonna do? If you don't have a sense of humor, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So plan ahead is always a good idea too, to just have those things in place and know your community resources. And that's kind of one of the things we were trying to do too, is build in the resources and point people to the right thing if they have a need.
Question about
Yeah.
resources. So one of our big challenges in keeping Dad home was finding somebody to help us while we work. So we started out doing half days, and our jobs were very flexible, and that worked, but we were dying on the vine and we had to go back to work for real. So
Yeah.
our biggest struggle was finding somebody to come in. Now, we actually have people now, but it took us months.
Yeah.
Yes.
To find people, several months to find people, and I called everywhere. Like, are there agencies out there that have a better list than
It's
I
hard.
don't know.
I mean, I know
Some
the
places won't
hospital-
give us a list because we have to do private pay because we
Yeah.
get us qualify, and I mean, seriously, we've called the church, because he's a very active parishioner. We have tried everybody. It is crazy how
It
hard
is
it
a
is to
struggle.
find somebody.
Yeah.
Have you posted it anywhere that you're looking for help?
So one of the people we have now, she is still friends with one of the professors at the university in the nursing area, because she is a, nurse. And that person put it on the board at the university and, I've left it lots of places, we've called people. Right now, we're lucky we have somebody, but that doesn't mean it'll.
Yeah, you need layers.
Because if they quit and they're gone tomorrow, then.
Then we're back at
Then
square
we're back where
one.
we were. It's so hard. That was just the biggest challenge for us is
And he
finding
can't be alone.
And he can't, 24/7, I mean,
Yeah.
we're all there.
Yeah.
And the weekends,
So
we got
did you guys have
covered.
something like that, or have you?
No, I mean,
No.
we struggled finding anyone, and we live 30 minutes out in the country, so we
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
really
that
hard to
then,
get someone
yeah,
to come out that
works.
far,
Yeah.
so. No,
You've reached out to the Agency on Aging?
Yes, I did, and they gave me one name, and I called that person had already taken a job, but they just get, I mean, it just
Yeah.
has to go one name, one.
I know the hospital used to keep a list
Oh,
of,
and then we kept calling the hospital, but they don't have it anymore. That
They got
office
rid
is
of it.
closed. The Joint and Road, nope, that place doesn't exist. See, we have called everywhere.
it is hard. I think housekeeping, finding
so
housekeepers in Hayes is really hard too. But, but that's kind of, again,
That
coming
would be
together.
something together, that somebody has an accurate list, and I've got some
Right.
people out there.
Would senior companions,
Have you tried them?
He's passing your.
Okay.
He needs too much
Have
help.
you tried relatives? That's how I started out, was with relatives. And
Well, just our immediate family.
Well, one of the
We have a
comments
big
I
family.
was getting was, I can't stand to see her go through this. And
Yes,
they'd stop. So what I was told is if somebody offers to help you, you give them the opportunity to feel good about themselves. In other words, you say, okay, this is what I need. Because I'm a German and we don't take help. We can do this on our own.
Well, that's the way Dad is.
Yeah.
Stubborn as ever.
But you can't think that way. You gotta give them a chance to feel good about helping you. That's one nice way to live.
We have the best nieces and daughters in the planet. They bring him a meal every night and eat with him.
See, that's,
Every night,
yeah.
one grandkid shows up.
I know a big thing might also be that some people, being Germans, I know, luckily I'm not full German, but my. Yeah, I mean, you grow up in a strict household and sometimes not all of them were nice growing up. And I know sometimes siblings are like, Dad was awful to us. Why would I help him when he needs help? But I know, cause I've always been my grandpa's favorite.
We did that with family too.
Right? He's just my favorite. And growing up, what was it like? Cause we cut off ties sadly, cause it was hard to communicate, cause we didn't know he was getting bad. But I know growing up, he was strict, but I was always the one that was babied. And I come back, he is a whole new person, and he's so pleasant. And another thing is like, they remember things from the past,
Yes.
and I try to kind of ask him questions that sometimes I don't even know. Like, I didn't know what it's called, chaps,
Oh, yeah.
right? I was like, what are they even for? And he went on to a full story about he was a cowboy in Indians, and I'm like, Grandpa, the timeline is not adding up. But and I was like, oh my gosh, they're there to protect them. So it's either siblings don't want to help, but if like grandchildren, we didn't see that growing up or when he was younger, and so we get to see a new self. So I mean, that's what I would try.
And that's where putting yourself in their shoes, how would you want to be treated? Just because I, have bad days and things like that, I hope somebody will still treat me with respect and just know that I want it to come back and treat me that way to better, huh?
We'll be at the nursing home together.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
keep
gonna
an
be
eye
pushing
out.
each other around.
Oh, they should be jumping.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one.
I love it. You can do it. So things I want you to remember, it is getting late. I apologize if I told you, I warned you. So it's better to be happy than to be right. That's one of my favorite sayings, because I do like to be right. But if you're dealing with somebody who's got dementia, it is better to let them be right and you just be happy. Focus on what they can do, not what they can't do. The one size fits all does not work. That's why, we're here together is like what worked for you didn't work for them. Vice versa, or what worked one day is not going to work the next. So just continue to don't give up, be flexible. And always remember that your mood affects those around you, even in real life, even if they don't have dementia. So I just think that's a good one to remember.
I just want to ask if
Yep.
is that tree supposed to be a face? Because it is.
Yes,
to-
it is. Yeah, face and a brain, I think, better. Or lack of a brain, maybe. So what we've discovered today is that those behaviors have a purpose and a need, and you have to really investigate to figure out what that could be so that you can meet that need. Your response to that behavior can affect the outcome. There are many helpful resources out there to improve the outcome of a difficult behavior, and it is vital for the caregiver to take care of themselves. Don't do this alone. So I think that's it. Yes. And I even got our new symbol on here. So this is a different mindset, is again, the group that we've started and the caregiver support group. So any questions or I know it's fast. Well, it wasn't fast, but it was a lot of information.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody for everybody's thoughts, ideas, because we needed ideas.
Good, good. And that's kind of, you know, again, I invite all of you.
Because it may not work tomorrow, but it might work in a week from now.